This thing's gonna look fantastic just in primer. Hello, welcome back to the Jeepster build. As you can see, I'm sanding black primer. I've got both front fenders all sanded down and the grill, and really fortunate I've got a really good build with this primer. I only sanded through just in this one spot and a couple of spots on the inner fender wells where it's not really that critical. So it's really coming along great. Much better than I had anticipated to only have maybe 3 coats of primer. I'm not going to have to put another coat on these. In past builds, I've usually had to end up doing a couple of coats of primer after I've sanded. And I'm just hoping I don't have to do that. On the hood, I'm just playing with, what I did is I put some 180 grit sandpaper on a wooden dowel, and I wanted to just sand this middle piece to see how well I did to keep this flat, because it had a bow to it, and I was able to stiffen it and straighten it up. And then I had a lot of oil canning on this side, so I ended up doing a lot of heat shrinking. So I've just been really anxious to start sanding on it. And to sand on an area like this, especially with this contour, I'm just using the dowel and I'm rolling it. And I just keep going back and forth on a zigzag. I'm rolling up that edge. And so far it's coming along really good. Just a little bit about this high build black primer. I used Eastwoods, it's a 2K. And what's really cool about it is it ends up with a really dark haze on the outer surface that sands off really nice, but it goes more of a grayish black underneath. So it acts as its own built-in guide coat. It's really cool. And let me grab the camera and I'll zoom in on this area. You can see as I'm sanding back and forth, as it's guiding me, I had some pinholes right here, so I put a little bit of filler on. There was a pinhole here, I put some filler on. But let me show you how cool this is for those guide coat marks. You can see how it really stands out as I sand, how that black, it looks grayer, lighter on camera than it actually is. It's pretty black, but you can see the fenders, I've got those all sanded and they just really turned out great. Same thing with the grill. The inner fender wells, you can see where I ended up sanding through in a few spots, but I'm not too concerned with those inner fender wells. I just want the outer surface to really be able to withstand. You can see I sanded through in a couple other spots. There was a little pinhole here, so I put some filler in it. I think this was a little pinhole too that I put some filler in. But other than that, this primer has worked out really good. You can see some little pinholes there I filled. And again, over on this side. And you can see how lumpy this ended up going on. This primer was probably about 2 years old. I slightly thinned it. I didn't want to thin it too much. They don't recommend you put a lot of reducer in it. So it's kind of gloopy, but it's sanding out beautiful. I started sanding right along here, and I had a low spot along the edge of some filler that I'd put in. Wasn't noticeable before, so I'm hoping just putting a skim coat across that will take care of that edge. And I'll start working on this side. I've got my longer board to go across this now. And just want to give it a really light touch when you're doing the hood, because it has this tendency to sag if you put much pressure on it, and then you won't get a good sand. And if you've got something on the back side that you're pushing against, it'll actually create a low spot as you sand through the surface. Okay, I've got just a very light low spot right here that I'm not at all concerned with. That should sand nicely. This is a little concerning. I might end up having to put a skim coat over this area. We'll just keep sanding, and hopefully I've got a lot of build on this, and if I've got enough primer, this should all sand out. Well, I was hopeful, feeling pretty positive that I was going to be able to get this all with the first coat of primer, but I'm still a little bit low right here, and I just hit metal here and here. So it doesn't look like I'll be needing a coat of filler. It's just if I put a really heavy coat of high build primer across here, I should be able to just feather this all out and it'll be good. But this rib has turned out perfect. There's no high and lows at all. So I really feel good about that. All right, I'll start sanding the other side, and hopefully that side is as good as this one. All right, well, the sanding block doesn't lie. I had quite a surprise right here, big high spot. I ended up feeling underneath the hood to make sure I wasn't sitting on something that was pushing up on it. But yeah, just a high spot that I missed. And then there's a little bit of a low spot right here, and a little bit right here. But it came out enough that one heavy coat or two of primer surfacer all over the hood will solve these issues. So I don't have to get out the filler. I might just put some lightweight filler in a couple of these spots, especially right here. There's kind of a divot right here, similar to the bubbles that I had along this. But this is more like I scraped it with my heavy sandpaper. So I'll skim in a little bit of dolphin skin is what it's called. Works pretty good. And I'll just go ahead and keep sanding on the rest of this. The key to doing a big surface like this is really good sandpaper and keep it sharp. I did this half and most of this half, and I started to feel my sandpaper was losing its grip. So put on a new fresh piece and then keep sanding. And then you don't have to work so hard so you're not getting that big surface to trampoline up and down on you as you're going back and forth. And if you do get a spot that wants to keep sinking, you can reach up underneath the hood and hold it up and lightly sand over it. But you can see it. You can watch as you sand across that it wants to not really oil can because it's not dropping down in, but it's just flexing enough that you're going to get a poor sanding job. But as bad as this hood was, I am really happy with how it's turned out. All right, I'll keep sanding on the sides of this and see how the rest of it looks. This side is excellent. You can tell right away when everything's going to go well. So the rest of this looks really good. So I'm going to go ahead and just hand do this front edge. I've just got a foam block with a piece of 180 on it. You want to just keep crisscrossing as much as you can so you don't end up with any hard lines or plenty sand scratch. just that quick and easy. I'm really impressed with this Eastwoods high build primer. And for a curved area like this, there's really no way to do it with a block. So it's just a matter of really spreading out the scratch and feathering out edges as much as you can so that you don't end up with finger mark grooves. Alright, well, I had planned on just painting the inside of this hood black, so I didn't put a heavy coat of primer on it. I put a little bit of sealer on the bare metal areas, but I'm having second thoughts. There's just enough hammer and dolly work that's probably going to show in the black. So I'm going to go ahead and put a high build primer on all of this inside. I did all of this because I had done some filler work and I wanted to make sure that was all really smooth, but I'm second guessing myself now. I want this all smoother, so I'm going to get this all prepped so that I can prime both sides of this hood. I'm not concerned about this being really super flat. I just want it to be smooth and not have any heavy sand scratch in it. So sanding with my fingers and knocking this out real quick is all I'm really concerned with. As you can see, I finally have all of the body work done on this thing. It's so exciting. So I am going to now coat the whole thing in an epoxy primer, just seal everything off, and then 30-40 minutes later, I'm going to coat all of this in high build primer. I'm hoping to put 3-4 coats of high build on it. I did 2-3 coats on the front fenders and the hood, and it wasn't quite enough. So I'll also be doing one more coat on those just to finish them off. Oh, and I've got the 2 doors. I need to do both sides of the doors, and I didn't do the inside of the hood. I was just going to prime that, but everything turned out so perfect, I'm going to go ahead and put a high build primer on the inside of the hood too, and just sand that perfectly flat. Just really make it look nice. Alright, I need to wipe this all down and kind of dust proof as much as I can all around here. The nice thing about the high build primer, it's dusty, but it sets up real quick, so it just cleans up real easy. The epoxy primer is another story, so I'll be putting that on with fairly low pressure so that I don't get a whole lot of overspray. And then so I can really get the primer to flatten out on the high build, I'll be doing a real high pressure, 60-70 psi for the high build, and it's about 30-35 psi for the epoxy. Alright, well, what started out to be almost a full day of masking turned into a full day of wiping down and priming. It was 6 hours. And now, tomorrow, I will get another coat on the hood, and I will get 4 or 5 coats on the doors, and then I'm going to get maybe 1 or 2 more coats on the front fenders and the grill. So I have another full day tomorrow. Yeah, 5-6 hours. Alright, I need to get all the masking off of this because before it becomes permanent, especially in all these little areas. It's not sticky. It's coming off a little bit, but if I let it set for a couple more hours, you might not even be able to get it off. All right, I will finish getting all this masking off, and I'll clean up all my equipment, and then back at it again tomorrow. This thing's gonna look fantastic just in primer. Can't wait to get it down on the ground and get it all put together.